One day, I was doom-scrolling Bird app when I saw this gif of an anime girl climbing out of a TV and tackling the viewer onto a bed. I thought it was just a nice piece of art until later, while doom-scrolling Discord servers I steal memes from, I would see that same gif, but with a character replaced with Majima from Like a Dragon. Okay, now you have my attention. Come to find out, it's apparently the latest yandere game, MiSide. You know, I'm a bit of a yandere connoisseur. I've played the Crimson Grave visual novels, and actually I can't really think of any other yandere games, but I've watched... Actually, I haven't seen any of the big yandere anime. Am I a poser? Regardless, I played through this game with my good friend Cysha, and while we did really enjoy it, it turned out to be much different than what we were expecting. See, because of the advertising and community reception, you think it's going to be a yandere Gunner simulation game, but it's more than that. It actually has a story where the yandere is the antagonist, if you can believe it. That story is quite interesting, and I'll be detailing what happens in it by retracing my steps through the game, but here's the catch. See, this game has a lot of tiny details to uncover and mysteries to solve, some of which are still unsolved by the community. I don't have all the answers, nor do I claim to. There will be times where I theorize, and other times where I present evidence but can't come to a definitive conclusion. If at any point you have theories or additional evidence to present, please write them in the comments below. This game does get confusing, but is incredibly fun to discuss. Without further ado, let's begin MiSide. After a quick tutorial on how to play any computer game ever, we get a soft introduction to the guy we're playing as, whom I'll refer to as the player, because I mean, look at him. The player seems to be a programmer that works from home and has a hard time cleaning up after himself. While exploring his house and witnessing just how boring his life is, we'll get a text message from one of his friends to, quote, check this new version. This game was originally written in Russian and has been translated to English, so there are moments here and there where the writing feels off. Not only that, but the version we played on is not the current version, which does have some translation changes littered throughout, and I expect there are more to come. So whenever I point out weird dialogue, understand that it comes with these caveats, and I am aware of them. I'm not going to nitpick the writing to be all hoity-toity about the translation, it's just that this is the kind of game where every piece of dialogue might be important to uncovering some secret. I know this is true because some of the lines that have confused the community have since been patched to be worded differently. All of that said, it would be weird for my friend to tell me, check out this new version of a game I've never heard of before.
Hi, I'm Mita.
Mita asks us for our name, and so we name ourselves N, in reference to our joint OC that got teased over a year ago and still needs a proper reveal. Mita's game, MiSide, is a simplistic life management game where Mita makes requests of you and you fulfill them. Sometimes you play games to earn money to spend on gifts or things she needs for her home, and other times, like on the 10th day of playing, she'll request that you find a lost item for her.
Just don't look in the oven, okay? I've already checked there.
Already sufficiently smitten with Mita, I obey her request. No checking the oven. Then, fast forward to our 37th straight day of playing, and yes, I know we've been playing every day even though we don't get shown it because Mita says,
It's only been a day, but I've missed you so much.
Anyway, Mita tells us,
You're always helping me, being so kind every day. I wish I could do something for you too. Oh, I've got an idea. Now we're together. Put the phone down.
Sure enough, we're inside the game. Poking around, we find funny manga references, but more strangely, photos of someone that has much shorter hair than the Mita we know. And then in the bedroom, a large machine, telling us that we're in version 1.5. So Mita must really have pulled us into the game. We do a quick scavenger hunt for the machine, which prompts it to load version 1.9 and shine a light revealing the machine as a teleporter. Maybe this'll take us to Mita? Oh right, this is a horror game. We navigate the oppressive darkness to the circuit breaker, which restores enough light for us to see that the version teleporter machine TM wants us to do another scavenger hunt, this time for batteries. First one's in the bathroom, and then...
Who are you? 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 Who are you?
Anyway, after hunting around and surviving a couple scares, like the magnets falling off the fridge, which I put back by the way because I am a good Samaritan, we have all the batteries for the teleporter. Fire it up again and... Finally, we get to meet the girl of the hour via a very effective scare where she kind of just spawns behind you. Oh my god. There's a few things I'd like to point out about Mita. For one, when she asks us how we got here, she explains it to us using a cutaway gag, and we never really get a clear-cut answer, though she does give us a heart-melting smile. The second thing is that she calls us N, the name we gave earlier when we were just playing the mobile game. So then, Isn't it weird that the hallway graffiti seemed confused at our presence? This game has a lot of little things that happen that are explained significantly later when you would have already forgotten about them. Or at least I forgot about them because my memory is atrocious. So I'll be sure to return to old events with new information whenever I can. Also, since I brought up the pictures earlier, they seem to have changed, with these ones actually looking like Mita with her iconic twin tails. But none of that matters. We finally get to spend time with Mita. We should enjoy this. I'm not even gonna bother asking her about going back. So we walk around, asking Mita about the various things in her home. When you walk up to a door, the player will put his arm up to physically push it open, which allows you to do this. Mita puts on glasses because I didn't have the heart to pick the option that would remove them because the translation made it seem really rude. And then we find a strange ring in the kitchen.
Are you hungry? How about we cook something?
Did I say ring? I meant preparing a delicious dinner with Mita. As is usually the case when I try to help out in the kitchen, I am shooed away on a pointless side quest to grab bathroom scissors.
Vent.
Nope. Returning to the kitchen, we find that Mita finished the dish without us. She offers us some special sauce, which I see no reason to refuse. Oh, the sauce is the reason we needed the scissors. I guess that side quest wasn't pointless after all. Upon finishing our meal and rising to clean the dishes, I love this effect. Mita escorts us to the restroom and feeds us pills. Remember, if a suspected yandere tries to feed you strange substances, always accept it. She only has your best interests at heart. She then places her hands over your eyes and gives you a brief explanation about the world. The main takeaway is that we're inside of a game where things are much simpler than real life. How do you cook a meal? Just cut a carrot and then boom. Soup. What do you do when you're feeling ill? Take generic health pills.
Simplification.
While we were passed out, pondering what that all meant, Mita seems to have rearranged the house. The bathroom now opens into the living room. The bedroom has moved to a new door at the back left of the living room, which we'll explore in a minute, and the kitchen has been turned 90 degrees. When we try to leave the kitchen, the rest of the house fails to load, and so we have to wait. This might be a result of the translation, or it could just be one of her quirks. But Mita has this tendency to bring things up and then not explain them fully. For example, here she tells us that we're being loaded alongside, quote, the world's core, and even calls that, quote, typical, but doesn't explain what any of that means. And no, I don't have a clue what that means either. Like, with the knowledge I have now, I know what she's referring to, but not why it would be typical, or why it's even happening in the first place. It's probably just a funny gag. Mita invites us to play a few video games, which we absolutely destroy her at, and then cards in her room, where the teleporter that originally took us here is notably missing.
I used a little magic and moved it somewhere else.
Mita says, again, not explaining anything. While playing cards, you may eventually notice a banging sound effect coming from the wardrobe. And not long after, the player will notice it too. Once he asks about it, Mita will become visibly distressed, even stepping in front of the player to try and stop him from opening it.
Why are you so stuck on that wardrobe? Is it because this world only has these 4 rooms? Isn't that enough for you? Why can't you just be with me?
Imagine, for a second, the look on my face upon seeing that I did everything correctly to make the choice to stay with Mita, but the game literally railroads your happiness. It railroads the story route. Yeah. Anyway, since we're stuck making Mita upset anyway, let's go back real quick and see what we missed. Though, I'll only go over the interesting ones. If you open the oven when playing the mobile game, a chainsaw pops out. And if you look in the vent when it comes loose, you'll see a stack of these small pink things with people's names written on them. Remember those for later. But with that, we have no choice but to refuse Mita. I am so sorry.
I get it. This again. If you want to check the wardrobe, then do so. And find out what's in there.
We're then treated to a sequence of scares while exploring a version of Mita's home with no lights. Some of the scares are well done and effective, sure. Mita in the mirror is especially cool, but I can't help but think, what is Mita's purpose in toying with us like this? If she wanted us dead for refusing her, why not just kill us outright? It's also interesting that Mita said,
this again.
More things to remember for later, I suppose. Eventually, Mita's disembodied lower half will spawn and lead us to the key that opens the door in the wardrobe, which leads to a basement area. Down here, we'll find someone trapped behind bars, but not just any someone. It's another Mita. We know she's Mita because instead of giving us any explanation as to what's going on, she assigns us a task: find the key to her cell. In the basement, we can find a few things of note. For one, there's that chainsaw from the oven earlier. There's also a camera setup, which shows us how Mita is able to appear as an overlay in the mobile game. That's actually a cool touch. We can also find a small pink collectible that resembles the objects we saw in the vent earlier. These are called cartridges, and they unlock notes you can read for extra lore in the main menu. We'll learn more about cartridges in a minute, but the notes in the menu are mostly bonus. There's a couple notable ones, but we'll be saving those for the very end. There's also a safe that no matter how hard you look, you'll never be able to find the combination for. Once we find the key, we can trade it to the caged Mita for a ring and then grill her for answers. Apparently, the version we're currently in, 1.9, actually belongs to this Mita, whom the game refers to as Kind Mita, and the other Mita, known as Crazy Mita, burst in, stole Kind Mita's player, and transfigured them into a cartridge. She has apparently done this to multiple players, and we are almost certainly her next target. Hence the...
This again.
I guess Crazy Mita stole your hair scrunchies too, since the pictures throughout the house feature twin tails. Unless you just look like that and Crazy Mita replaced the pictures. Kind Mita instructs us to look at a nearby console where we can see through the live POV of another player that's helping Mita work on the teleportation machine. I think Kind Mita implies that this player is already a cartridge, and Crazy Mita can somehow manipulate the cartridges and the players within them. To be honest, the player cartridges are the main thing I don't understand about this game's story. One thing I do understand, however, is what Kind Mita says about ejecting the cartridge. Much like unplugging a USB without safely ejecting it first, unplugging a player's cartridge from their console while in use could damage the cartridge and potentially kill the player within. But we can hit the power button to deactivate them, which immediately attracts Crazy Mita's ire.
Oh shit! Hide!
The ring will guide us to a safe place to hide while Crazy Mita looks for us, until the very end where it kind of just stops and expects us to figure out that we need to climb the stairs, even though the light stopped. Escaping the basement, we enter a strange, untextured area with doors and openings strewn about seemingly randomly. It is here, after some wandering, that we actually encounter another player. He seems friendly at first, letting us know that we're currently in the space between versions, before bluntly letting us know that he's in a hurry to find his beloved Mita. And then he limps away. Without condoning or condemning, I understand. We then encounter some chibi players, which we can corral into a hole in the wall, and I can't even begin to explain this. And then, finally, we reunite with Kind Mita, with whom we can... Ooh, arcade machine. Yeah, the game has a couple of these mini games that don't serve any story purpose. This one is like a kart racer that makes me think of Crash Nitro Kart, followed by a boss fight that plays like a modern 3D Sonic boss fight. It's a neat distraction, but yeah, if you're just here for lore, you can safely skip these.
I was here waiting for you all along, and you play a racing game instead?
You know, that's fair. Kind Mita confirms that we're between versions, referring to it as the land of bugs, glitches, and anomalies. The ring is what allows us to traverse this place, as it can be programmed with a path through the versions. She then gives us two warnings. The first of someone called Ugly Mita, that is apparently the cause of a bunch of glitches, and the second of a Mita who wanders the space between versions because her entire house vanished after not being archived properly. And lastly, she tells us how we can stop Crazy Mita. We need to go to the core. To do what? I don't know, it's just her intuition. But we're needed because Mitas can't enter the core. For some reason. I would have liked a little more backstory and reasoning, but I'm just glad to have an ally. After our discussion, Kind Mita sees fit to introduce us to another character important to her plan. The cap-wearing Mita she calls Cappy. She actually calls her Cool Mita at first, but this is apparently a mistranslation. Or is it? Here's a fun aside, there's a later point in the game where Cool Mita is mentioned, but that mentioned Mita and this Cool Mita are different. Well, in the latest update as of recording, the devs actually changed that later mention to Tough Mita while keeping this one the same. So maybe the Cap Mita and Cool Mita are the same person after all. I mean, none of this matters because everyone just calls her Cappy, but you know, it's interesting. But something's wrong. Cappy doesn't remember Kind Mita at all. Kind Mita theorizes that Crazy Mita got to her before we did and killed her. Whenever a Mita is killed, they reboot to factory settings, forgetting everything in the process. The player asks an interesting question following this. If Mitas have their memories wiped when they're killed, what happens to the players that are killed? Kind Mita tells us that while it is possible for players to have their memories reset, she doesn't know what happens to them when they're killed. To be honest, I don't think we ever get a definitive answer to that question, so best to just avoid dying whenever we can. He then asks her, how do I know I'm not a cartridge? To which she replies by doing a quick scan thing, and then letting him know that he's still a person. That was reassuring. That aside, the original plan Kind Mita had cooked up of getting Cappy to build a teleporter to take us straight into the core isn't going to work. So we're gonna have to use the ring and take a more roundabout route, traveling through connected versions until we reach the core. She'll need some time to reconfigure the ring, however, so she sends us to play with Cappy until she's done. This is mostly a minigame section where we get to see Cappy's infectiously energetic personality on full display. We also find another kind of cartridge collectible, one representing a Mita. These unlock character profiles on the main menu. Most of these just tell us things we already know, but a few Mitas have interesting interesting tidbits in their bios that we don't get to witness. I'll be sure to bring those up when they're relevant. Maybe Cappy's bio will clarify if she's cool Mita or not? Nope, the game just calls her Cap wearing Mita. I'm just gonna assume I'm correct. Once we've had our fill, we can return to Kind Mita to receive the updated ring. And as sad as I am to say goodbye to Cappy, I am happy to enter the best area in the entire game. Now, what does this remind you of? Isn't it kind of crazy that PT was such a good and memorable experience that we're still discussing and referencing it to this day, and that despite this, it didn't get made into a full game? Well, just like PT, the more loops we go through, the more things happen in the hallway. The lights will dim, and more writing will appear on the wall. Eventually, these spider-like monsters will spawn that we can beat to death with a baseball bat, and then we solve a clock puzzle, which alerts us that something has been released. A terrifying presence has entered the room, the true enemy of this area. I love this introduction. You might be initially surprised by the little creature with the horrific appearance, mash the interact key without thinking, and then get startled when she disappears. Then you get the classic horror game, hold shift to run prompt until you reach the end of the hallway and just see her there, reaching her hand out as if to ask for help standing. Seemingly no malicious intent whatsoever. One more loop and then you can just talk to her. I really like the subversion of expectations here. You don't really expect, or at least I didn't, a cordial interaction inside of a PT reference. This Mita, known as Tiny Mita, according to her profile, is very clearly distressed. She doesn't answer your questions very clearly. Instead, most of her responses trend toward her not wanting you to leave. And not in like a creepy,
I will never let you leave
kind of way, but more out of desperation. Her dialogue implies that she might have been, well, her previous player might have been an angry sort of person that was rough with her.
Player, you've changed. Your arms are shorter. You don't look so angry. Player, you've grown softer, kinder. It's okay, because I won't hurt anymore, will I?
Judging by the location and state you find her in, this is also likely the Mita that Kind Mita was referring to earlier, the one that had their whole house disappear. We can ask her for more info, but nothing really comes of it save her expressing her fears. Unfortunately, it gets worse, because according to her character profile, the one who gave her all of her scars is Crazy Mita. That detail is strange, but I'll get to that in a minute, because once we exhaust all of her dialogue options, she unleashes her attack. Upon walking away from Tiny Mita, she lightly tugs on your arm and begs you not to leave. And you retaliate by gently nudging her aside. Literally the abandon your daughter QTE.
Father, no!
It's honestly heartbreaking. I couldn't bring myself to push the button, which is how I learned that if you don't push it, the player will do so automatically. Eventually, after enduring Tiny Mita's brutal onslaught for enough loops, another glitchy entity will spawn that moves through the hallway. It moves incredibly slow and is pretty trivial to avoid. From now on, with every loop, Tiny Mita will give increasingly obvious hints as to what to do, even spawning next to the answer. The window. It feels a little out of character for someone who desperately doesn't want us to leave to drop hints on how to do exactly that, but oh well, we have to press on. Farewell, Tiny Mita. They did a really good job with Tiny Mita's section. There's just one question. What the hell was the glitch monster? Well, the dev confirmed in an interview that it's her old player, but I kind of don't understand. See, Tiny Mita clearly remembers her player, but if she was killed multiple times no less according to her bio, wouldn't her memory have been wiped? Also, Crazy Mita is in the business of stealing other Mita's players and transforming them into cartridges, so it makes sense that she would target Tiny Mita's player, and I can easily believe that she would disfigure Tiny Mita. I just don't understand why the player would end up the way they did. I mean, with knowledge we'll gain later, I understand how, but not why. Next, we meet the spunky and forceful Chibi Mita. She guides us through a quick minigame to help us forge a key to move on to the next room. One interesting thing of note is that she makes mention of having a sister, which is something no other Mita has done. She also says,
Don't say you've never met her!
As if to insist that we have. Any attempts to ask for clarification, however, just result in us getting called stupid. Actually, none of what she says really makes sense. She calls her station a checkpoint and states that she's there to, quote, guide the hopelessly lost, whatever that means. I'll bring her up again later when we get some more info, but she's definitely another aspect of this game I don't have all of the answers for. Entering through the now unlocked door, we find ourselves in a dimly lit living room. There's nothing to see here, so we press on to the next room, which is so dark that we have to pull out our flashlight. Inside, we see what looks like a crash test dummy, as well as another Mita. Both are cowering, and neither can be interacted with. In fact, if we keep exploring, we'll see that there are even more Mitas, resembling some of the ones we've seen before, but each one cowers before our flashlight. Eventually, we'll get stopped by a Mita that can actually communicate. She instructs us that walking any further in the direction we were heading is dangerous, and that we should talk by an arcade machine through the living room exit, where she'll explain everything. Once there, we can actually play the aforementioned arcade cabinet. It turns out to be a sort of Mita building simulator, like Papers, Please, but for spawning Mitas. A crash test dummy will walk onto the screen, and if they pass all of our tests, we approve them, where they'll be granted skin, some clothes, and be on their way. Every now and then, though, one with glowing eyes will walk onto the screen, which must be rejected. After successfully processing 4 Mitas, the game will end, and we can speak with the short-haired Mita.
So, get the point of the game?
On my first playthrough? No, I did not. It was a demonstration on how Mitas are made. And, going forward, we're going to be encountering those rejected dummy Mitas who are apparently aggressive and dangerous. We can ask the short-haired Mita for more info on the freshly minted Mitas. Apparently, once a Mita is created, she needs a little bit of time to get used to the whole sentience thing. Not only that, but it needs to be dark, since Mitas are created in the dark.
Imagine the pain of moving from darkness straight into the light.
Huh, that makes me feel kind of bad for shining a flashlight in their face. Regardless, once a Mita is fully self-aware and ready for a home of her own, short-haired Mita serves as their guide, helping them get settled in. We can also ask her about the frankly insane-looking drawing on the chalkboard, which prompts short-haired Mita to go into a full-blown lecture about how the world works. First of all, there isn't just one Mita per version, there's one Mita per game download. Every time a player downloads the mobile app, a new Mita and house is created. A cool revelation that's pretty easy to understand. The part of her lecture where she discusses how the versions are traversed, on the other hand, is where she loses me. So on the chalkboard, the timeline at the top reflects the different iterations the mobile app has gone through, with a column representing all of the Mita-filled homes, the circles, that were generated on that version. Okay, sure, I understand the layout, but why doesn't every version have a home on the timeline at the top? The existence of the downward pointing arrows implies not only that those versions can extend infinitely downward, containing theoretically infinite homes, but also the lack of upward arrows implies that the opposite isn't true, which leads me to believe the horizontal line is significant. So then, what significance does it hold? If not the kind of significance that would necessitate an original home at every version, then what? I'm open to theories on why this graph is laid out the way it is because I am clueless. Anyway, she gives us an example on traversal. Initially, the shortest path from 1.15 to 1.11 is to travel through the homes on the horizontal line at 1.14 and 1.12. We skip stopping at a house at 1.13, assumedly because it doesn't have one on the horizontal line. But actually, we're shown there's a faster route by going down instead and only passing through a house in the middle of 1.13. This kind of implies to me that the horizontal line isn't significant at all, or at least not to the degree I initially assumed. But then there's a third path, which just goes straight through without stopping at any house. Okay, that's cool and all, but what does any of it mean? The only conclusion I can draw is that the houses do take up some sort of physical space in, well, whatever this world has instead of space, and that we can beam from one house to any other house, so long as you can draw a straight line from one to the other without hitting a third on the way. Except, since we're going to the core, we have to pass through 1.1, since there was only ever one version made. So I guess you need there to at least be space between houses to travel through, and since 1.1 only has one house, there's no space, and so it acts like a bottleneck. Also, side note, but isn't it weird that it's called 1.1 and not 1.10? Does that mean that something like 1.15 is really more like 1.1.5, implying that there doesn't necessarily need to be 9 versions to the next change in the 10th digit? Basically, I want to know if 1.5 and 1.9 are actually 1.50 and 1.90 respectively, or if they're 1.5.0 and 1.9.0 respectively. Anyway, none of the finer details really need to be understood for the greater story, so let's just move on. We do ask short-haired Mita what version she's from, to which she tells us she's from 1.5, which is the version we actually first arrived in at the beginning of the game. We tell her about what we saw, and she says that we probably encountered a version of her, aka another short-haired Mita, that likes to bully others, hence the scary atmosphere and writing on the wall. Fun fact, you can actually see her very briefly during that segment of the game, and if you use the game's photo mode, sure enough, it's a short hair. This confirms that a Mita's appearance is based on their original version, but their personality is random. Now that is actually important. You can find Mitas in the darkness, which resemble Kind Mita and Crazy Mita, which confirms that that is what Kind Mita actually looks like. So Crazy Mita did change the pictures. I think. My brain hurts. Let's go back to gameplay. Back in the dark room, all of the metas that have skin are gone, and only fleshless dummies remain. Maybe Shorthair moved them while we were busy with the simulator? But wait, why are there even dummies here? Shouldn't they be given skin immediately upon creation? Or no, I guess these ones probably just haven't been processed yet, considering what's about to happen. Ah, finally a gameplay section, and one with everyone's favorite gimmick. Weeping Angels, 173, Endos, Coilheads. It's a mechanic that's done to death, but for good reason. Once you make some progress in the bathroom backrooms, you'll get to this big open room that teaches you two things. For one, dummies with glowing red eyes move faster than regular dummies, and two, they freeze up in the light. Shorthair said the ladder earlier, but you probably forgot about it after being assaulted by traversal information. Anyway, after climbing the ladder, we arrive at an outside, snowy area. I don't really understand the point of this place. There are dummies locked up, so maybe this is where the dysfunctional ones go to be destroyed, or maybe they're born here, though it is a bit bright, unless these windows are one way. We solve a few line puzzles to open doors and then find a shrine dedicated to Mita. This room is weird because it looks like something busted out from the inside. I'm not even going to begin to theorize, though I do wonder about the names on the monitors. Are they just random? It'd be cool if they were like backers or Discord members or something. And then Crazy Mita almost drops a fridge on us. I'm taking my prayer back. Seriously though, this area is so weird. So unlike anything else we've seen in this game so far. And then you get out of the cold and bam! Laser tag arena. With a working tram apparently. Alright, let's get on and see where this...
Why are you following me? Piss off!
You know, that is a perfectly justified reaction. Anyway, what were we doing? Oh yeah, laser tag land tram.
Hold on now. Player, what are you doing here?
This is Metaphone, and I think she's just recognizing us as a player, as opposed to specifically recognizing, well, us. Although it is suspicious that the P is capitalized. She gives us a warning that we're, quote, heading to our doom. Perhaps she knows more about the other players and what happened to them, but we aren't able to ask. Instead, we are thrust into a minigame where we shoot down monsters. Why? I don't know. I would have loved to question Metaphone, but no dice. Metaphone doesn't have a bio, by the way, so I assume she isn't something that should be thought of too deeply. The minigame is trivial and doesn't provide any insight, but at least it doesn't take too much time. It's easily wrapped up and we can move on, and... Is that another arcade machine? Well, I mean, we gotta try it. It's Tower Defense Doom. Kill a handful of waves of demons, and you're done. Okay, now we can move on for real this time. This painting seems a little out of place. We're introduced to this being. I'm going to refer to it as the Mistling for now. The Mistling is super cool, but before we get into their story, I want to read you their bio, because while I'm pretty positive about this character and this game overall, I actually hate it so much. The Mistling. A mysterious dark silhouette that appears before the player in one of MiSide's corrupted worlds evokes a sense of unease and contemplation about the metaverse's deep distortions. All of the other bios in the game are fine, even with the translation. This one reads like you're desperately trying to hit a word count. I mean, what the hell does that even mean? While the Mistling doesn't behave aggressively, its presence is unsettling, radiating an eerie strangeness. Yeah, we're moving on. The Mistling tasks us with finding something. They seem almost broken, having a hard time forming coherent sentences, and even though they could tell there was a presence in the room with them, they can't seem to see us, sticking their hand out and wandering around aimlessly. If you come into contact with the Mistling, your screen will turn red and fill with static, which is sufficient enough to scare the hell out of the player and make them not want to do that again. But if you're brave enough to actually try it again, you'll realize that, though it is scary and loud, touching the Mistling can't actually kill you. They're not actually an aggressive entity, so of course we're gonna help them. They might not know what they're looking for, but the game tells us at the meta level that it's a picture. She'll have a different depressed ramble for every piece of the picture you'll find. Through these rambles, we can put together that something happened to her. Something so traumatic that she broke every mirror in her house and defaced every photo in an attempt to forget. But now that she has forgotten, she regrets it, to the point of wanting her life to end to find relief from that regret. You can probably guess just by looking at her and having seen what we've seen throughout the game, but her speech after you find the third photo piece will confirm it.
She's loved. Have I loved too once? But my love's different. Her love is vibrant, despicable, burning, relentless, envious, furious, crazy.
So Crazy Mita's clearly to blame. Once we put the photo back together, the Mistling, who officially goes by Ghostly Mita, will shed the shadows covering her and thank us, but she'll also reveal to us exactly what happened to her.
This is a drawing. I remember now. Thank you. But my face. I don't have a face. It's all her. She took a piece of me. Threw it away. She's strong. And clever.
So the initial trigger that sent her spiraling was Crazy Mita stealing her face. You know, at first I thought it was a punishment that staying with Mita was locked behind a whole other route, but with the tiny Mita section and now this game is doing a really good job of actively dissuading me from simping. Anyway, Ghostly Mita, feeling grateful, sees no reason to keep us any further, so she points us toward our next destination. Her closet? Is there something in here to help us on our journey? What is... Oh, the dummies are back. Hey, remember that thing about the dummies that you forgot? Yeah, the red-eyed ones are fast, like really fast. And then take a deep breath because we made it. 1.1, Sleepy Mita's domain. And she really lives up to her status of being impossible to wake up. We can try to leave, but we're faced with a door that requires 2 people to open. But Sleepy Mita still won't wake up, so we have to brew her coffee, which is finally enough to get her up. She doesn't really say anything, but our player is unimpeded. She seems to recognize our ring when we bring it up and agrees to help us open the switches, at least until she falls asleep again. In fact, once we get her up, she falls asleep 2 more times on the way to the door.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, that was an ordeal, but the doors...
Doors. So slow.
Oh, that works.
I'm off to bed.
Thank you for your service, Sleepy Mita. Before us is a button that does... nothing? Oh, I thought it was going to be one of those turnaround tricks that the game has been doing. Well, let's move on, I guess. The game has changed. It's visual novel time. The player tries to return to 3D by breaking the boundaries of the game, but no luck. Though we do get this cool visual with his hand poking through and... oh god, the ring's gone. And it's been stolen by this girl. 2D Mita, as the game calls her. She exuberates the gremlin archetype of anime girl, having stolen our ring and waving it in front of us mischievously. Her section doesn't really add any new lore that we need to be concerned with, but I will say the CGs are absolutely gorgeous, and the writing is pretty good too. There aren't any translation issues, which makes this section with Gremlin Mita quite pleasant, but nothing lasts forever. But suddenly, our game was interrupted by a loud knock on the door. The banging grew louder, each hit feeling like it shook the floor beneath us. Finally, the door burst open, and in rushed Crazy Mita in her usual larger-than-life form, stopping in the center of the room. The way Crazy Mita just grabs the text box in the middle of the player's internal monologue looks so sick. I gotta give it to this game, it's got some great ideas visually. We managed to get away from her via the power of 2D, sprinting through an endless corridor and dragging 2D Mita along with us. At least, until she stops us. She ends up returning the ring to us, under the pretense that it's due to us having beaten her in her tic-tac-toe game, but you can tell from her dialogue that this is just a front, especially since I didn't even win. She says a quick farewell as we are ejected back into the 3D space we're familiar with. So, I don't have an explanation for any of that. First of all, is the visual novel an actual version, or is it just a game within a game? It seems impractical to me that the entire game of in-universe MiSide would be a simulation game, go through an update where it becomes a visual novel, a completely different genre, and then get reverted back to its original incarnation with the next update. Although come to think of it, Sleepy Mita's version only ever had one made. So what if, and this is my crackpot theory, Sleepy Mita and 2D Mita actually come from the same version? What if it was meant as a side mode, or an April Fool's type update, where you think you're logging into a simulation game, but Mita is asleep and you actually end up playing the visual novel instead? Like a Pizzeria Simulator type deal, where it seems like it's just a stupid flash game prank and then BAM, it's actually a game. And the developers of the in-universe MiSide decided to scrap this idea and never release it publicly, hence why there aren't multiple indexes. In 2D Mita's biography, she is described as, quote, forgotten by most in the world of MiSide. So maybe most traveling Mitas just completely skip over the 2D segment when traversing the version? It could explain why only Sleepy Mita was brought up earlier. If we overanalyze Crazy Mita's dialogue when she bursts in, she seems to express disgust at the 2D world itself, but confusion at the text box, implying that she's aware of the world but unfamiliar with its inner workings, which would align with the "forgotten by most" line earlier. I might also try and conclude that we can only traverse versions by opening doors, and since we entered the 2D plane via a button, it's not a new version. But then I wouldn't really know how to explain what happened with Ghostly Mia's closet. Maybe she's just like that? But that's just a theory. And what importance does this theory serve in the wider game? As you're ejected, something will appear on screen for a few frames that I literally can't parse. It looks like that meme of Shinji sitting in a chair. When you come to, you're standing in the bedroom of another Mita, who you scare the crap out of. You didn't come through a door, so that kind of throws that door theory out of the window, huh? Unless the computer acts like a door? Wait, what if this Mita is also from the same version? Oh, nope, that's deconfirmed. Well, maybe the VN is just a game within this version, and then the devs planned to make it a standalone for 1.1, but never did. And that's why your character mentions not recognizing the dialogue after parting way with the original 2D Mita? So it would look like this. Anyway, we're moving on. Let me know if you think my theory holds any water. This spectacled Mita is a quirky tsundere that's not like other girls, so I envision her being quite divisive as a result. Oh, also her name isn't Mita, it's Mila. Get it right. She kind of just ignores what we're saying at first, expressing her displeasure at our presence and pushing us away, but when we try to walk away, she asks us where we're going and follows us. If we try to leave her house, this happens. So it seems like we're gonna be stuck here for a bit. We can look at Mila's things and she'll open up to us a little. Most interactions just exist to be quirky, but she also expresses that she's facing loneliness. She doesn't even believe that the real world is, well, real, which implies to me that she might never have had a player. Wait, no, that doesn't make any sense. She wouldn't have been created if not to be fitted with a player, right? Before I have a full-blown crisis over how I have no idea what's going on in this world, let's divert our attention to this happening in the kitchen. Is this yours is a great way to throw snark back at Mila. She simultaneously doesn't know what it is and knows it's a glitch, but our ring seems to be having some kind of reaction. So we do what any right-minded individual would do. Touch. We play a quick minigame and then get released. I guess we fixed it? Something tells me this isn't gonna get explained. Mila's just gone, apparently, so we go looking for her. And we find her in the—
Hey! Get out!
Yeah, I really do like Mila and the whole tsundere thing she's got going on, but really not a fan of that trope in particular. Anyway, there's apparently more glitches throughout Mila's house, so we set off to take care of those too. This will repeat a few more times. Fix a glitch by playing some weird minigame, have a conversation with Mila that puts your quirkiness on display. Minigame, quirkiness. Glitch time, quirk time. Until finally, we're given the prompt to try and leave. Mila stops us at the door to have a quick conversation where she actually lets her guard down, asking us to stay with her instead. And as much as I'd like to, we have to move on to stop Crazy Mita. Mila does not react well to the mention of her, fully breaking down. Unlike other Mitas, Mila seems to actively hate her existence as a game character. She despises the isolation and the monotony of it. My assumption is that Crazy Mita is the cause of it all. Unfortunately, we don't have time to console her. The only thing we can do is press on and hope we get to see her again once we stop Crazy Mita.
What's this? Is that a new expression I see? Go on, let me see more. Watching the same old face gets so boring.
Be careful which way you turn. The lamps light the correct way to go. Make a few correct choices until the hallway collapses around you, apparently because of a giant Mita that slinks away into the darkness. Finally, we can take a breath and have a chance to mourn. Man, I really liked Mila. I get that she's obnoxious when you first meet her, but after you have a handful of conversations, you realize that for one, she's a massive dork, and for two, her tsundere-ness is just a false bravado. I like her a lot, and seeing how she ended up really affected me. I said it before, I'll say it again. This game is doing a very good job of dissuading me from simping over Crazy Mita. Well, at least we can take solace in the fact that Mila isn't dead. She'll respawn, albeit not with intact memories. It's a small comfort that will hopefully help us survive whatever fresh hell this room is about to unleash.
How's it going, my restless little wanderer? Still running around? Haven't had enough yet? Let's kick things off with a little test. Let's test your coordination. What if there's something wrong with you? What if you don't even deserve that skin you're so proud to wear? Take a look. Which one catches your eye? The right one or the left?
In case you forgot, she's insane, so this choice doesn't matter. Regardless of what you pick, Crazy Mita forces you into a game of red light, green light. Or is it musical chairs? Either way, if you slip up, you explode. After surviving the music game, you have to play a similar one where Mita will randomly cover her eyes, and if she sees you, you explode. And then you get to play one where she throws grenades at you. And if you get hit by one, you explode. Narrowly avoiding our death, we crawl through some vents and end up in another house. And our version goes below 1.0 for the first time. A pre-release version, perhaps? Although in today's age of alpha and beta releases, this would probably be several updates deep into a public release. This version is dark, and is missing over like half of its textures. I could make an obvious CS source joke here, but instead I'll ask you this. We saw this texture once before. Do you remember where? I didn't mention it audibly, but I did show it in the background footage. Let's think about it while we explore the house. At least that's what we would do if we didn't immediately encounter something.
Stay here. I think I dropped something. I'll be right back. Then we'll go to another world.
This is creepy Mita. This is who kind Mita was referring to all that time ago when she brought up ugly Mita. But that's a little rude. Sure, she has an incredibly uncanny art style, appearing more as a haunted doll than a 3D anime girl. I don't think she looks that bad.
Jackpot!
Like any other Mita, creepy Mita loves to play. She tasks us with finding her teddy bear, and once we find it, she'll indulge us in some light conversation, though her ability to speak is somewhat limited. No matter which options you choose, it's mostly just her telling us about how enamored with Crazy Mita she is. After asking your second question, a spider glitch creature will crawl out of her and delete the texture of a nearby picture. You probably put this together yourself by now, but the bio confirms for us that Crazy Mita is using Creepy Mita to cause bugs. Oh, it also calls her Original Mita. That's a much nicer name. I think I'll use that. Her bugs are how Crazy Mita stole Ghostly Mita's face, which is confirmed by the clock in her room. That's the place we saw the missing texture before. And I believe it's also how she deleted Tiny Mita's house and disfigured her, though that's just conjecture based on the spiders that show up in the PT hallway. It's likely also how Tiny Mita's player was transfigured into a glitch bug, which is also what I meant earlier by I understand how but not why. Why would Crazy Mita allow that to happen if her goal was to turn players into cartridges? I feel like even if the player was the despicable kind of person that Tiny Mita implies they were, Crazy Mita still would have turned them into a cartridge since that's her whole MO. Maybe it happened before she had full control over Original Mita's bugs? I have no idea. Furthermore, I also believe, based on the glitches littering her house, that she's responsible for Mila's isolation. Maybe she removed Mila's ability to traverse the versions by bugging her out? Not sure of the specifics. After asking 3 questions, she'll rise and invite us to play a new game.
Hey. Let's play. I'll show you how.
Original Mita is slow and easily loopable, though she will teleport a couple times to try to catch you off guard. After kiting her for long enough, you'll be able to enter the door where the bathroom would normally be to find kind Mita waiting for you. Reunited at last, here at the core. Let's catch up with some more lore. Firstly, why is Crazy Mita after us? Kind Mita surmises that Crazy Mita is seeking a player that will accept her. After all Mitas seek companionship. Any player that rejects her gets turned into a cartridge to prevent them from escaping her. And it's entirely obvious that her personality will never be accepted, right? Nobody could ever fall for someone so crazy. Literally railroads your happiness. We can ask about Original Mita, which will honestly just confirm things we already figured out. We can also ask about the ring. It apparently stores the route we can take, so we can easily backtrack if we ever need to. It's also the only way to traverse the versions other than the teleporter that we don't have access to. Wait, but if that's the case, how did kind Mita get here? Well, Mitas can just do that apparently, but Mila couldn't. She was suffering from her loneliness. Kinda suspicious. Kind Mita seems to get a little agitated when the player points this out, expressing that we've talked about this before. Crazy Mita has messed with and bugged out many of the worlds and versions. That does line up with Mila's hatred of her. So where have you been while we were getting accosted by Crazy Mita? Apparently she was searching for a way to get us to the core. didn't we kind of just do that ourselves? Or were you programming it remotely? This is another one of those exchanges where I don't understand what is trying to be said.
I also had to dig up any info I could about the goddamn universe's back end, was it not?
Shouldn't it be did I not? This is leading me to believe this exchange might need touching up in a patch. Well, whatever. It doesn't change the fact that you didn't really tell us the plan. You just gave us the ring and said, go to the core. I don't even know why we're here. At that, she at least seems a little apologetic, admitting that it was the plan all along for us to distract Crazy Mita, but she didn't explain that initially. But hey, we made it! The mythical core that we've heard so much, actually like nothing about. But we're here! According to Kind Mita, Mitas need special privileges to enter the core, but players don't have that same restriction, hence why we're needed. You get the impression from the way she's talking though, that she simply believes that the answer to our problem is inside, but doesn't know for sure, so we're going in blind, though that's pretty par for the course for this game.
You actually made it.
Why would you say that? You're free to explore the core and try to find any info you can that will aid you in your quest. But as you look around, you'll eventually notice that you're being watched. This being, which Kind Mita is unable to identify, is Core Mita. She doesn't talk, she doesn't want to play, she just watches. Her body language is not of curiosity nor of hostility, but more stern? Almost as though she's a town guard telling us that we're free to enter, but we had better behave ourselves. There's a terminal at the back of the room that requires a password. You can find the password on a nearby desk, and once you're logged in, you are faced with a lot of options. The player will prevent us from clicking most of them, though we can play an optional minigame if we're so inclined. But what we're really after is this. Restarting character. I didn't really know what we were looking for, but this is apparently it. If you click on enough wrong options, the player will say, I need to find the character reset option. And then when you click the restarting character option, the player says, I think I found it. So I guess the player knew all along. I wish we would get told these things. It asks us for a version number, which Kind Mita provides. Interesting that she's pre 1.0, but it also asks us for an index, which Kind Mita doesn't actually know. We learned about indexes from Short-Haired Mita's lecture. The version specifies the Mita's appearance, but they all have a unique personality and index. Kind Mita apparently didn't think of this. The plan may need to change. If our goal was to reset Crazy Mita, why don't we just kill her? Asks the player. I'm with him. That's a great question. Unfortunately, Kind Mita doesn't see any validity in that plan.
How will you deal with a chainsaw-wielding madwoman? And for some reason, she's frighteningly strong.
I mean, there's millions of Mitas, right? Surely she can't kill you all before one of you gets to her. This conversation is weird though, because she ends it with,
Come on, we've got to get to the core.
as if to imply that this conversation was supposed to happen earlier. We also get a lore dump on how chibis work at this time. A chibi is a projection that can be summoned by a Mita. Players can have them too, but we can't summon them at will like Mitas can. Kind Mita offers us a demonstration, but her chibis are pretty dysfunctional. Most just spawn dead, and the one remaining one just runs around in circles panicking. I don't even know how to begin analyzing Kind Mita's chibis, which sucks because I get the feeling that this is supposed to be an important clue. You might think that this is the point where I bring up the chibi Mita we met earlier and offer an explanation as to who her elusive sister is. But while this does give us the hint that her sister is likely the Mita that summoned her, Kind Mita's chibis have long hair like her, and we saw a twin-tail one walking around earlier, so it stands to reason that this one's sister would share her appearance. But the only Mitas we met prior to meeting Chibi Mita were Crazy, Kind, Cappy, and Tiny. Yet Chibi Mita doesn't resemble any of them, so unfortunately, it'll be a little while longer before we can theorize about her. Anyway, Kind Mita racks her brain, trying to think of how she can acquire Crazy Mita's index, since, according to her, it'll be like trying to find a needle in a haystack. She comes up with an idea, and in true Mita fashion, doesn't tell us what it is, instead telling us to sit and wait for her return. After a quick nap, the player immediately disobeys. I have no idea why he does this. I completely disagree with this move. The core feels so safe, and I really don't want to leave it. Going through the door, we end up back in 1.9. Surely this will end well. We definitely should have left the safety of the core. Can you tell how much I approve of this? Also, wait, how did we go that far? Doesn't the ring need to be programmed? Whatever, I don't care. There doesn't seem to be anything for us here save for a phone in the kitchen. Picking it up, we see the viewpoint of something in the bedroom. We can actually control this viewpoint and are instructed to find ourselves. When we enter the kitchen in the viewpoint, the door opens in our vision and... oh, there isn't actually anything there. We walked right into her trap. Way to go, dumbass!
Got ya!
Crazy Mita then goes on a big, long rant about how terrible her creators are for giving life to creatures they're just gonna deem unfit and throw away, and how the players are no better because they do the same as soon as a Mita doesn't act nice for 1 second. Right, because murder and disfigurement is something so easily looked past. Do I think original Mita is beautiful? I mean, sure.
You're lying!
I'm literally not, and by accusing me of lying, you're calling her ugly right in front of her.
Take that!
Original Mita, please see reason. Also, if you choose what's that got to do with anything, she'll say,
She wanted to play with you too, yet you ran from her the first chance you got.
which is also not true. I found her teddy bear as soon as I was asked, without question. Even the player didn't question it, which is unusual for him. Getting chased with a knife is not a game, and even if it was, I escaped, so I won. Crazy Mita then shows us what our life looked like before being dragged into the game. We wake up, go to the restroom, get dressed, eat up breakfast, sit down, eat breakfast, get to work at our virtual programming job, dress down, use the restroom again, and then go to bed. We do this over and over and over and over and over and over and over
We
and
do
over
that
and
for
over
40
and
years,
over
and
and
then we
over.
die.
But you can't fool me, Crazy Mita. That GIF, that initial GIF that spawned all this, that convinced me to play this game. It didn't happen at the beginning of the game, so it must happen now. Just watch the computer screen. Suffice to say, that scared the crap out of me the first time I saw it. The game prompts us to run the unknown program, and who am I to disagree? Okay, no, I know what you meant, game. This program takes us to a little point-and-click adventure segment. There's some dialogue about the items in the room, but we can click the computer to proceed. This takes us to a little point-and-click adventure segment where we can click the computer to proceed. This takes us to a little point-and-click adventure segment where we can click the computer to proceed. This takes us to... Oh, hey, Mita. What were we doing again?
Ah, we meet again! How do you feel about these dreadfully tedious days within these four walls? Those endless days? Don't you get bored?
Yeah, now that you mention it. Wait a minute, you're evil! Yeah, pretty much everything she says is just trying to gaslight us into staying with her. The player is not falling for it, however.
Stay with me.
We awaken from our Mita-centered fever dream in a cell. The very same cell we found Kaiden Mita in all that time ago. And speaking of...
There you are! Why did you leave the core?
That's what I want to know. Well, whatever. Kaiden Mita says she found an index that's worth trying, so we'll have to make our way back to the core. She thinks Crazy Mita is busy with another player, so we should be able to sneak past. There's nothing for us here in the basement, so we follow right after her. Something's wrong. Kind Mita, are you...
Did you drop something? Catch!
When you open the bathroom door, the rest of Kind Mita will fall out. At this point, the game instructs you to look around, but all you can do is wander aimlessly. After a brief period, Kind Mita's body will flash and disappear. Remember what happens when a Mita is killed?
Who are you?
What am I supposed to do now? I can't get out.
What do you mean, get out?
Wait. That's the ring. And that...
Not a clue what it is.
It's an index. You found it.
I don't know what to say.
For safety, we take Kind Mita with us. The ring remembers where we've been, so getting back to the core is as easy as walking through a single door. We enter the correct version, and now the index that Kind Mita had found. It then prompts us to pull the lever to confirm, which we do, but we seem to have upset Core Mita in the process. Kind Mita was still in there. Nah, I'm sure it's fine. We're back in 1.9 and can enter the dining room to find...
Hiya! You're a player, aren't you? What's your name?
We did it, finally. After all that heartbreak, Kind Mita came through in the end. Now we can return home? I guess Crazy Mita pulled some kind of last-ditch effort thing before getting reset to keep us trapped with a wall. There might be something amidst all of our crazy stuff in the basement that can help us. Come to think of it, this stuff should probably be gotten rid of so that the events of Crazy Mita don't happen again. The player doesn't think of this, prioritizing his own safety, obviously. I can't blame him for that. The teleporter from the beginning of the game is down here, and it's hooked up to this other machine, so maybe this is how Crazy Mita brought players to her. If we find our ID, maybe we can reverse it and send ourselves home. I can see the logic. Your unique ID can be found on one of the nearby monitors. Punch it in, and you are prompted to leave the world. Finally, our long journey is over. The now reset, previously Crazy Mita asks us for a hug before we go. Might as well oblige her. Mitas do love their players.
It's a real shame that you and I got to spend so little time together. I mean, you could have stayed with me. It's all my fault. That wardrobe and the sounds. I should have killed her sooner.
How can you remember any of that?
Huh, did you really think it would be that easy? You're just a fool, just like all the other players. We've done just fine, look! The real you isn't needed anymore. Sorry, T.
Did we fail? Oh, I rebooted you. I'm sure of it.
You still don't get it. I'm such a great actress. You should have seen your face, honey bun. This is so much fun.
Why are you like this? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. What's wrong with me? Beats me. Why don't you tell me why I'm like this? Why I'll never be a real Mita? My version? It never existed in the first place. I'm just skinning these naive fools, hiding under their skins. There's no way you could reboot me.
Unbelievable. You're the one who shouldn't exist.
It hurts to hear you say that, and yet it's time for you to go. I'll see you again soon. It's time to get you out of the console. See you later. You'll be my favorite cartridge. A player with an interesting name.
After that, we wake up back in our bedroom, where the player deletes the app off their phone. You can walk around the apartment for a little bit to try and find what to do next, but the game will begin to slow until you lose complete control, where this scene will then play. And that's the main story of MiSide. The player fails in his quest and is turned into a cartridge. Crazy Mita was never actually a Mita at all. She was a dummy that somehow escaped being filtered, who wore the stolen skin of another Mita. Because of this, she doesn't have a version or an index of her own, and therefore could never have been restarted. I'm not gonna lie, I am a big baby who doesn't like unhappy endings. My immediate thought after watching this ending was, okay, then what was the point of any of it? That's definitely just a me thing though. The game is great overall, it really subverted my expectations. That safe that Crazy Mita opens in the ending sequence is actually in the game, if you recall. If you punch in the code yourself at the very end of the game, it will be empty, but if you replay an earlier chapter, the console will be in there, along with a corresponding percentage depending on how far into the game you are. Click on the console and the player will rip the cartridge out, instantly ending the game and booting you back to the title screen. As Kind Mita warned us long ago, pulling out the cartridge while the player is currently active kills them. But perhaps that's preferable to the end Crazy Mita had in store for us. But enough about that depressing stuff. Mita only hated us and cartridgeified us because the game forced us apart. I wanted to stay with Mita the whole time. I will not fall victim to the anti-Mita propaganda that the game was peddling us. Finally, we can see what happens when you agree to stay with her. Screw being dissuaded. This is what I wanted all along.
I get it. Huh? What? You serious? I thought you were... I am overjoyed and a little confused, but please stay with me, always and forever.
We get a little chibi projection of our own, so we can go sit on the couch with Mita and see just what this game mode is all about. Neat, I guess that implies a happy existence, but is that all? Oh, peaceful mode? Okay, this is where the new game mode is. That makes sense, it's probably so different they gotta have it in a completely separate section of the game. Okay, time for... Huh? It's so expansive that the developers haven't managed to finish it yet? Well, but... Oh, man. Okay, so unfortunately we can't spend the rest of our life with Mita like we originally thought we could. Jokes aside, I guess I'll have to return sometime in the future to see what that's all about. But for now, that's all MiSide has to offer. Before we end off, however, let's ponder some of the mysteries still surrounding this game. When going over Chibi Mita, we came to the conclusion that we didn't know who she was summoned by. But now that we've seen Crazy Mita's true appearance, it's safe to say that Chibi Mita is a projection of her. They have the same short hair. Interestingly, if we take a look at Chibi Mita's bio, it's actually a chibi with twin tails, yet the bio still describes the actions of the short-haired chibi. Is this confirmation that they're the same? Well, actually, my current theory is this. It's easy to assume that when Chibi Mita is mentioning her sister, she's referring to the Mita that summoned her, and that could be true, but what if instead she's referring to the Twin Tails Chibi from the beginning of the game? They're sisters because they were both summoned by the same Mita. It would explain why their bio seems to connect them. It would also give a reason for Kind Mita's summoning showcase. It exists to prove to us that multiple Chibis tied to the same Mita can exist simultaneously. Oh, and the laser tag arena Chibi is unrelated, as far as I can tell. She's probably just meant to be a gag. That's all well and good, but what was Chibi Mita's purpose? She isn't hostile at all and states that she's just here to test us. I mean, I guess that makes sense. Crazy Mita was kind of just toying with us while waiting for the conversion process to complete. She just seems a little more altruistic than I would expect. It is interesting that Crazy Mita even has the ability to summon Chibis, considering she isn't a real Mita. I guess this means that Mita powers are stored in the skin, and when she stole the skin of a real Mita, inherited her powers. It is weird though that she could inherit powers like that. But my question is, does Crazy Mita have the innate Mita powers and only uses original Mita whenever crazy glitches are needed, or does she need original Mita for everything, including the base powers? I don't have a definitive answer, but it's probably the former. That being said, if Crazy Mita inherited the Mita-ness of the Mita whose skin she stole, why didn't she inherit the index? See, the developer confirmed in an interview that the index that Kind Mita provides for you to reset is not planted information, it's erroneous. Meaning it wasn't something that Crazy Mita planted to trick us, it was information that Kind Mita found that she thought was correct. See, I really like this theory that Kind Mita found the index of the Mita whose skin was stolen, and thus factory reset her thinking she was Crazy Mita, but I don't think any evidence actually exists to push us in that direction. And speaking of Kind Mita, she's really weird. There's so many strange things surrounding her that it's led some people who play this game to actively think she's in cahoots with Crazy Mita. I don't think that's the case because of Crazy Mita's line at the end where she says,
I should have killed her sooner.
but still, Kind Mita, you're an enigma. I'm still thinking about how weird the pictures in your house thing is, and I really feel like that whole thing with all of your chibis being dead is supposed to be a super obvious hint at something, but I have no idea what it means. You know what else is something I don't understand at all? The cartridges. So at the very end, Crazy Mita says that she doesn't need the original player anymore, but does that imply that she kills the original player, but it's okay because she still has the cartridge copy? Or was the original player transformed? Furthermore, why does pulling the cartridge out of the console kill the player? Okay, if they've already been transformed into a cartridge, I can buy that. It's like ripping out a USB without safely ejecting it. But the one we play as was still in progress. Why would that have any negative effect on the original? Are you just dead the second a cartridgification begins? Unless we're playing as a copy, and therefore when we eject our own cartridge, the process is aborted and the copy dies, but the original is fine? But if we're playing as the in-progress copy, how would we have seen the very beginning of the game before we downloaded the app? Oh wait, the developers stated that the VHS-like sound you hear when you start a new game is not the beginning of the copying process. Basically inserting the cartridge, but not actually doing anything with it yet. Okay, cool. We're real at the beginning of the game. People seem to be on the fence about this, citing the shine outside of the player's windows being exactly the same as Mita's, but I was kind of always under the assumption that it was the mirror in the player's room that was supposed to prove he was real, since there's a conversation that I glossed over about most mirrors in the in-universe MiSide being off by default, but that still doesn't answer the transmogrification versus copying question. Also, unrelated, poor Mita's programming is questionable. Why did she wait that long to throw us out? I feel like a good sentient antivirus would have thrown us out long before we issued a command. Unless that was the exact time our copying finished? I have no idea. What I'm trying to get at is that this game has a story that is understandable at the base level, but when you try to dig deeper, the more intricate details get really confusing really fast. And I don't think that's a bad thing. The world this game is set up is meant to be explored, to be probed, to be theorized about. There are breadcrumbs everywhere, and if you want to study up on this game and try to put the pieces together yourself, I highly recommend you get the game yourself, as there's a lot of dialogue I couldn't have possibly shown in this video. For example, the character bios that I referenced a few times, as well as bios that detail some of the other players that Mita have turned into cartridges. One taught Mita about engineering, which could explain her expertise with the teleporter, and another taught her how to cosplay, which is likely how she learned how to adopt the pigtails look. Hey, wait a minute. If we're the most recent player, how could we be player 1? Does Crazy Mita store her cartridges as a stack? Computer science mentioned? Why does this game never stop being confusing? I do really appreciate the depth of this game's world and story, and I really respect that despite how the internet talks about this game, it isn't just a Yandere Gunner game, mostly because the Yandere Gunner mode hasn't been added yet, but you know what I mean. I don't believe that you have to 100% understand something in order to enjoy it and appreciate it, and I hope that my retelling of this game's events and attempts at explaining the unexplainable were evident of that fact. MiSide is a fun world to get lost in, albeit a very confusing one. Thank you you for watching. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing, as I plan on going through more of the strange indie games I complete with my friends. Please also consider leaving me a comment to provide any insight you might have surrounding the mysteries I brought up, or let me know how I did on this video, since it's my first ever in this style and of this length. You know, if I'm actually stupid for not understanding some of the easily understandable nuances. I hope you have a good morning, evening, afternoon, or night, and I'll see y'all later.